found a little shop, and it's about a 30, 40 seater.
Oh, so just you have knees up
little,
and down.
Little shop.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
The upstairs is open to the street. The downstairs is open to the street.
Cool.
Little kitchen. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
It's a 7. You're on the 7 now.
Yeah. Well, right now, Song-Tui is closed. We knocked down, and now we're rebuilding. Yeah. But we have the beer truck there while.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's cool.
While we're in construction, we're still open. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
And then as soon as we get that finished, then the beer truck will be going all over the place.
Yeah. I think that's such a cool thing. I saw that.
Yeah, we like the beer truck.
Okay, so we should be ready to go. I guess we'll do our best with the roadside traffic, but that'll be fine.
Up and down. Yeah, a bit of beeping. That's Vietnam. Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
So you get it on the outside.
All right, so this is Sexy Meat Talks. So we have Mark Gustafson, we have Tom Charles. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, man.
Yeah.
Very nice to meet you.
And myself, Josh, and you are the owner and proprietor of Meatworks Butchery.
Correct.
So thanks for meeting with us. We want to get into some early questions to get your backstory, what brought you to Vietnam, what you love doing here, what you do with your business, and then we're gonna do a segment where we do a walk around through your store.
Okay, cool.
Check out a little bit about what's going on. So.
Sure.
All right.
So let's get into it.
Yeah.
Shoot away with questions.
Okay. So I hear from an anonymous source that you were a Foster's representative, a Foster's consultant.
Correct. No, I was back. Yeah, I started work with Foster's in 1997. I was a sales manager for them here, and we had the Foster's brand, and the BGI brand, and the LaRue brand. So we had a brewery in Da Nang and one in Mỹ Tho.
Sure.
And I was with them for about 10 years, 11 years, up until 2008, and they sold the breweries to Heineken, or APB back then, and then I got into meat straight after that.
Mm-hmm. Beer to meat.
From beer to meat, yeah.
Very smart and sexy way to go about it.
I mean, I grew up in Australia, so I've always had a lot of meat. Obviously, Australia's pretty well known for meat, like it's in the US.
So, was your initial getting into the meat business, was that in Australia, or was that when you came here?
No, it's when I came here. So, when they closed down the breweries here in Vietnam, I jumped into a company called Kim Hai, which is another meat importer, processor. And we were the largest imported processor at the time, back then in 2007, and we were doing a lot of wholesale meat, just bringing in meat, processing, selling to Sheraton and selling to the Vietnam Air caterers out at the airport. So we were doing quite a lot of processing.
About what time period was that?
That was 2007.
So that was early on. There wasn't a lot of.
There was probably us and Classic. And that was about it, really. And Cushendall, the pig guys, the golden pig guys, were importing a bit of meat.
Whereabouts in Australia are you from?
I grew up in Melbourne.
In Melbourne?
Yeah, Melbourne,
okay.
Victoria, Melbourne, yeah.
Okay, that's going to factor into something I want to ask you later.
Okay.
But when you first came to Vietnam, what were some of the... let's just put a date to it. So did you come in early 90s, later 90s?
It was April 1992.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
And tell us about your early experiences, just the cultural life, food.
Listen, it was very, very basic back then. I mean, I was 19 at the time when I came back here. I was lucky enough to find a job through a friend's father in Australia, and I worked for San Miguel Brewery at the time.
San Miguel?
Oh.
Yeah, in Nha Trang. So I lived in Nha Trang for almost 2 years, which was really, really quiet back then. So all you'd see is just everyone was on bicycles. You had that typical Ao thing where all the students were wearing Ao. I was on the beach, just going up and down the coast, just selling San Miguel beer. And we were basically selling out the back of a van, because then there was no real distribution set up, no wholesalers or anything. So it was early days. It was great fun.
Okay, so when you were first in Vietnam, what was some of your early experiences with the food here?
I've always loved Vietnamese food, and I think it's obviously changed a lot over the last few years, or the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. But I think it's kept to its basic style and flavours, and I've always loved it. So I kind of eat Vietnamese 5 days a week and Western a couple of days a week.
Back then, was there any Western food available?
No, there wasn't, and Well, certainly not in a chain. And then down in Saigon, there are a few sort of pubs / bars, like the Shakespeare Bar and things like that, were basically ran by foreigners or expats who had pies and chips and so forth. So I'd go there once a week for a bit of a fix when I was living in Saigon in the early days.
And so when you were going around looking for different types of food, did you find specialties that you enjoyed? I know in certain areas, mee wang is very popular. There's khao lao and
sure, right, yeah. No, I liked nem nung in central Vietnam. It's pretty good, which is that little thin piece of pork with the wrapping. I also liked, obviously everybody likes pho. You get pretty addicted to that. But I've always had pho for breakfast. And also, I guess my favourite would be bung bao hui. I eat that quite a lot every couple of weeks.
For the listener who may not have tried that, what is bung bao hui?
I think it's basically beef shin shank, and then sort of overnight
A lot of times I'll have a little blob of that curded blood.
yeah.
Which it's not for everyone, but it's rich.
It's rich, yeah, and it comes from whey, obviously.
Explain that a little bit more. The curdled blood.
It's they just it's like cooked and thickened, and a nice slice of it, usually in a bowl of bun bowl.
Yeah, I think Mark's more of a chef, so he'd probably know a bit more about that.
I've not done the process, but it's just irony and rich and not for everyone, and extremely beefy.
Yeah, it's very beefy and quite a bit of spice too, so it does come with a bit of chili, and you can really taste the chili through the flavour.
When you were living in Australia before you came to Vietnam, now because Australia is much closer to Vietnam than, let's say, America is, I grew up and knowing that there were some small Vietnamese restaurants around. Were there many Vietnamese restaurants in Melbourne?
I think there was plenty. I mean, Melbourne's, after the war, they had the biggest intake of refugees.
Melbourne didn't?
Well, I think it was LA and then, or somewhere in the States, and then Melbourne. so outside of Vietnam, you'll see LA and then Melbourne is the biggest intakers of the refugees.
I know many boats were
and Sydney, I think it's Sydney as well, and Sydney at Cabramatta. Yeah. So there is plenty of Vietnamese. There's an actual area called in Richmond, and they actually have like a Ben Ton market, and it's this exact replica.
They
call it Ben Ton market, and the clock on the market is Vietnam time, and that's been there since sort of mid 70s to today. So big influence.
And so after you were in Nha Trang, you were working with Foster's at that time.
No, and then I was with San Miguel.
I'm sorry, San Miguel.
San Miguel, and then I joined Foster's in 1997, and then moved to Saigon. Yeah.
Were you living any place in between?
No. I did 1 year in Hanoi with a water bottle company that didn't take off.
I've been here for 6 years, and it's fascinating how quickly this city has changed. You've been here for far longer. What are your experiences in your early days compared to now?
Right. I think the city's losing its beauty and its the old style landscape. Obviously it's got to develop, so the country's getting more developed. So I kind of miss the open streets and the bicycles and and that. I'm kind of a romantic, but
even just 5 years ago when I first got here, when Josh first got here, there was less cars. It was a little easier to get around. It just seems to be getting worse and worse.
It's a train station down the middle that's going. It's kind of split the town.
But I also like a lot of the developments too.
I think it's going in a good direction. It's certainly changing the consumers have changed tremendously.
What about in terms of entertainment? We recently talked to Tim Scott from Tim is he's a big lover of music.
Sure.
And so one thing we talked about was how even today it's kind of hard to see internationally known acts in Vietnam. It happens, sure, but sometimes it's hard. It's few and far between sometimes. Do you ever miss entertainment that you had access to back in Australia?
Yeah, I miss going to, I lived in Melbourne and I was 18, 19 at the time, and you could always go to a pub and see a live band. And I kind of miss that. And there's always a Wednesday night at this pub, a Saturday night at this pub, or at that bar, and you kind of miss that. I know there are lots of bands around now, but I'm probably a bit older too, so I don't get out and see them as much, and it's really loud music. So, but
in the 90s, that was every area has its iconic group of artists. Since you were 19 in your 20s and through your 20s in the 90s, who were you following? What type of music were you into?
Oh, I think I was kind of into the Pearl Jam and the Soundgarden and all those sort of bands. It was when grunge bands,
yeah,
but it was when grunge sort of started, I guess. So, and I still listen to Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and a few of those CDs, although they're not CDs anymore. They're on iPod.
They've gone to iPods to just a cloud.
Yeah.
So
Spotify.
ephemeral, it's hard to think about.
Spotify, yeah.
I asked someone who ended up knowing, just for a question to ask you, it turns out he knows you quite well, so these are coming from a good place. Just looked a little bit at who your father is, and your father is a well-known lawyer in Australia.
Correct. Yeah. He's was a Supreme Court judge of appeals, so yeah, quite senior in the law world.
He was awarded a very prestigious, I guess it would be a medal back in 2017. Yeah,
correct. He got an Order of Australia, so it was big. It was huge. I'm adopted. So he was here during the war, helping all the kids get out for the baby lifts, and then I think it was in early '74 when I came to Australia. He decided to adopt. My mother and father decided to adopt a Vietnamese kid as well. Mm-hmm. But they were here during the war, doing all the. Well, Dad, being a lawyer, was helping doing all the paperwork and making sure the kids they did all the right paperwork for visas and so forth, and could get out of the country.
Very critical work.
They love it, and they've always come back every couple of years, and still love Vietnam and so forth.
And you said, I actually don't know the term, baby lifts?
So in 1973, 74, when Saigon was falling, there was a lot of media about. There's actually I was reading a book about it, Operation Baby Lift, the other day, written by a nun. And anyway, you could get it on a podcast.
Okay.
Anyway, they were. Part of when the US government was leaving, the Australian government was leaving, was to take care of these orphanages, and there was about 3,000 babies that went out before the fall of Saigon with nuns and so forth. And
the name makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And so, you grew up in Australia. When you were living in Australia before you came here, what were some of your activities and hobbies that you got into?
Just the normal sort of things kids do. Bit of music, bit of football, Australian football.
No idea your career would go beer and meat.
And then didn't think it'd go beer and meat. And then I was kind of a bit lost and jumped into the uni courses and didn't really like them. And then came here for a holiday and then went back to Melbourne and then found a job through a friend that ended up being with San Miguel Brewery. So that was kind of cool.
Was there something in your childhood that you feel led to you being a good manager, or someone who was good at networking and connecting people with different products?
No, I always liked selling. I always kind of liked selling. So my career was sort of all mainly in sales, so running sales teams, sales reps, and so forth. And I did like beer. I mean, who doesn't love beer? It's kind of like, so it was kind of like, whoa, I get paid to go out and travel around and sell beer. And they're paying me for this, so it's kind of cool. I mean, it's every man's dream, really.
It does have a nice
quiet, and it's quite cool. And then moving into meat was similar. It's F&B, still hanging out with the same kind of guys, restaurant owners, bar owners. So I enjoy it. Yeah.
Well, with the uptick in traffic, and now that we got rain, I'm worried that maybe now would be a good time to cut here and move inside.
Sure.
Just,
So basically, I think we got this space from Jim. I don't know if you know Jim, who used to run Vino at Lubu. Okay. So he had a wine operation here, and they were selling retailing wine and also wholesaling. And he said to me he was giving up this site and moving into restaurateur instead of importing wine. So we were very lucky. It just came up about 5 years ago. And as you can see, it's double frontage. It's quite wide. we didn't have to do much renovation. So I put in that wall, I think, or part of that wall. Walk on through.
All right.
We have each of our butcheries has a processing room, so that's all similar. We've got a pretty similar footprint in District 7.
Should I go in first?
Sorry, I'm going first. And then we'll come in. Wave him, wave him. So come on through. They're doing the afternoon cleanup, so you watch this step. You might get sort of watery feet here. But basically, we have a chiller. A chiller which we prep into. So that's for sausages, hams, bacon, those sort of things. And then we also have a chiller for the carton meat, which is through here.
Could I just take a shot of the...
Yeah, I wouldn't get too much detail. It's a quick can. Yeah, no, go for it.
It's probably good for your toe, Mark.
I'm
Yeah, man, probably
I
cleaning
lost
it.
my toe on the motorbike.
Probably cleaning it, man.
No, it's all sealed up. And it was about a week ago. You ever done that? It's the first time I ever did that.
It's painful, man.
I just get on the bike and I put my foot down on the peg.
And because
I looked down, it was like the bonnet of a car opened up.
but we've got everything here. We've got a man sort of carton meat. There you go. Sausage pillow over to the left here. That can do like 10 kilo at a time, 10, 15 kilo at a time. Vacuum packers. We bought up some butchers from Australia to help us launch the business. Back in, 4 years ago now, 4.5 years ago now. And each year we have a butcher come up and do some training with the staff. So Tom, I think you met Rob
Yeah.
in the last year.
We actually butchered a little cow together at East West.
That's right, yeah.
Great butcher.
But he's now working with the leading butcher in Melbourne called Peter Bouchers. And Peter's son, Tom's coming up on Saturday, actually tomorrow. So they come up once a year. We do. I think we're going to focus on smoking chicken and other meat items. But we do that every year, so it's kind of cool for the staff and everyone here.
Sure, it's kind of like a continuing education.
Yeah, it's like, and it's a bit of an intern. The guys love to get out of Melbourne and
Yeah.
And then
So we have here District 7, on-food supermarket, and then we have a wholesaling business in Phu Quoc, which is just basically a large cold store with a large production room.
oh, we did an episode with Winston from Winston's Burgers.
Oh, Winston Burgers, yeah, he's a cool guy.
You're probably selling him his meat.
We're selling him some sausages at the moment.
Cool.
But yeah, no, he's a cool guy.
He was our.
He does well, man.
He was our second interview only.
Yes.
Yeah,
he
it was a lot of fun.
our first kind of official feeling interview.
Okay.
We did an interview before that, but we were just kind of getting rolling, and then Winston, we were planning a trip to Phu Quoc anyway, and then I was like, hey Mark, let's. I heard about this guy. I went at burgers at his place the year before, and
Yeah, no,
I just
really
sent him a
good
message. Said,
burgers.
hey, we'd love to do this. He was fine.
He's busy. Well, he's busy doing the
Yeah,
business.
yeah.
There's a couple of thousand a month.
So we got all kinds.
So yeah, so the pork and chicken's locally sourced from Long An, out sort of down in the Delta, and the beef and lamb we import every month by air, chilled. So we like to keep it everything fresh. Sausages we make here.
Excellent.
We've got probably the widest range of cuts.
Where are your casings coming from these days?
Yeah.
Everyone's having a problem
issues at the moment. Yeah,
because
week.
of the it's an international problem. The African swine flu that's hit the pork
Hit the
industry.
pork. Yeah, we're buying them from a supplier here, a local supplier.
Oh, cool.
But they called me up last week and said they were having issues, so we're a bit concerned too.
Yeah. Every sausage maker is
Yeah,
concerned.
yeah, the restaurant owners concerned too. But we were using hogs casings and lamb as well.
Cool.
So for people who are concerned, what fears can you lay to rest?
Well,
I know that some Vietnamese stopped buying pork.
Well, first of all, it doesn't affect humans at all.
It can't affect humans. It can't be passed.
Even if you do consume a pig that is infected with it, if it's cooked properly, it has no effect on humans. but it has a massive effect on the industry and the animals themselves, because the animals just don't survive if they get it. So it's terrible. It's ripped through Europe and Russia, now through Asia. And,
China, ripped through China.
Yeah, China. It's going to be a little while until they get control of the whole thing. So it's.
But I think it was mainly in the north. Like we buy from CP and some of the bigger chicken suppliers, and that.
Just to lay it to rest, all the pork that's in the supermarkets right now, the Vietnamese government is making you show the certified papers that this came from a safe source. And
they're pretty
if you're sitting down and eating pork at any I would say reputable restaurant, you're getting 100% safe pork, or people are just switching to imported until it gets sorted out.
So I know some Vietnamese were choosing to just cut out pork entirely. How many months has it been since this current?
Six months at least. Yeah, probably a bit more. But I think that's media. I think there's a lot of media,
a little bit of misinformation
going everywhere.
Yeah.
I remember years ago when the chicken flu came out.
It was a similar thing.
It was a similar thing.
They actually had to.
They had to
start. Yeah, they had to start over.
But the government's pretty quick here. It's a socialist government, so they clean things up pretty quickly.
Yeah, they don't argue about it. They just make a decision and we're done.
And they're done. Like in China, look, we'll kill all.
Love it or hate it.
It's quick. Done. It's quick. It's quick. So we're not really worried about it.
Excellent. So all imported beef.
All imported beef, and we obviously do a lot of bit of value-added stuff. We process, marinate. You can see the pork roasts we do here. We do a lot of roast pork stuff, or ready to roast kind of stuff.
Maybe making the hams?
We're making the smoked one. We're curing and smoking. So we've got a smoker in District 7, an electric one we built.
Excellent.
And I got your tip, and we use the sugar cane. Knock me out. Yeah, you guys.
There's plenty of it. It's actually a great thing. It's like people are throwing it away. It's sustainable. It's cost effective, and it tastes delicious.
And it smokes well. And I think we buy a bag for $20,000. This old lady probably gives
when we first we were purchasing it from a company that was collecting it and compressing it into bricks.
Right.
And then one of our Vietnamese chefs, me and the lady next door will give us all we want for free. So we were like, all right, we got smoking chips.
Yeah. But we've tried everything else and that works well.
So was that kind of it for you when you got into this? Like, I want the meat I grew up eating in Australia.
Correct. Yeah.
Here, I want it now.
I always had there's never really a retail shop, and even when I was not in the meat industry, I used to go to the Gold Cushion Door Butchery, which was on Wing Seal Street, opposite Hai Ba Trung, and they had a little butchery. It was mainly pork, but they had these frozen steaks in the freezer, like one of these freezers. And I always would go there and buy a steak. And there's never really been a butcher.
When I first moved here, you opened I've been here almost 6 years, so you opened about a year after I was here.
Great.
I heard, there's a new shop, and at that time, there was still already only a few places, but you could go into veggies.
You got veggies, they had some veggies and dim
sum.
fum.
A couple of places, but now there seems to be a good handful of them.
We're probably the most focused. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
If I'm going to barbecue at home and I'm not going to my restaurants, I know I can get everything I want here, especially the
rum.
The rum.
And the decaf.
One of the questions we ask all of the guests is, what is the sexiest piece of meat you've had?
Right. I'm like Mark. I'm a big fan of the non-prime cuts, so the rump, which is over there. The T-bones, obviously, I love T-bones. Anything with a bone, that's pretty good too, because you get that meaty taste. So obviously the tomahawks and things like that. But I usually we at home we eat a lot of rump.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's economically affordable and one of the cheaper cuts. The beef just tastes great.
Are you a big fan of burgers?
I'm a big fan of burgers. Mm-hmm. I probably have a burger at least once a week for lunch, so, like everyone.
Do you make it yourself, or do you have a go-to place?
No, we have our own, so sometimes I pop home for lunch. I go to Surf Shack. Have you ever had a Surf Shack burger? The Japanese guy up there, they're pretty good for a local beef. Where
A
else
lot,
do I
lot,
go?
of, lot of good burgers.
Yeah, there's a lot of good burgers around.
Just in District 2 alone, Relish
You
and
guys
Sons
do a
is
great.
nice.
You
Mad
guys do,
Burgers
yeah,
is
Relish and
delicious.
Sons. You guys do a great burger at Grand River.
I love our burger as well.
Yeah.
Kwanudut, and then Jeff just opened a smash burger.
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
And
He's doing well.
That's one of the good new burgers
Yeah.
in Thao Dien, if you haven't tried it.
At the Village Grill. Yeah. That's they've got a great smash burger, and they're using the bacon from Jake's Barbecue, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So he just opened up a month ago, but he's doing quite well, I think, Jeff.
Yeah, Jake has moved into wholesaling,
Yeah, right.
so he's selling the restaurants. Cool.
How do you watch the AFL games, which can be on quite late at night, and still get up and make your deliveries on time?
Oh, okay, yeah, no, they're not too late. So they start in 10 minutes. You get the first game in 10 minutes of the Friday night game, and then all through Saturday and all through Sunday. So, but I've got like an AFL app that I put on my phone and also on my computer, and I can watch it live. So I kind of come in and out and watch the game.
Okay, so you just really
Serve
good with
some
time
customers.
management.
Yeah, time
Okay.
management. But I'll probably be going down to the pub in about half an hour and watching it with all the Aussie guys that are in town. Down
Okay, what pub do you like?
we go to Blue Gecko just because it's
Oh,
an
Blue
old,
Gecko.
an old favourite. You know? But it used to be the house of AFL many years ago when we were back in the 1970s or 1997. Sorry, once.
Mark and I play darts over there sometimes.
Dude, yeah, no, it's just old. I mean, it's nothing fancy.
Little hole in the wall.
Yeah, a little hole in the wall hasn't changed. Still black. Still the same decoration.
Well, there you go. So you have the meat you had in Australia. You
Correct.
have your sports.
We've got the sports. We've got the footy still.
I think that's true. What Josh said earlier. You end up doing the things you're passionate about end up being what the path your career takes.
Sure.
Yeah. You've got craft beer in the fridge.
Yeah,
Excellent
you can
wine
tell
on the
we
shelf.
love the craft beer.
Case of meat and access to your favorite sports.
It's the best of both worlds.
That's one way to do it
Yeah.
in Vietnam.
That's right.
We asked you about your favorite meat. I noticed you had they looked like rogue dead guy cans.
Yeah, they're red.
Is that one of your favorites?
No, basically one of my favourite beers. I like the Platinum.
Okay.
Yeah, just because I'm good friends with the owner, of course. But it's probably one of the best-selling beers.
Yeah.
So basically, I used to
Yeah.
have all the craft beers, and then it really goes. My wife now does the ordering, and it just goes on what sells. You know, I used to just order for everything, but you see that Heart of Darkness does really well.
And
Consistency
you
is
make
good.
sure the platinum moves really well here.
Yeah, I make sure there's always a case on the top row there for me that I can access after work.
Excellent.
But yeah, out of the imported ones, it's definitely Dead Rogue that seems to be selling well.
Is there any beer you miss from home? I know there's a lot of microbrews in Australia.
Not really. I think we've got a pretty good range here. I mean, I kind of love what's happening with the craft world and the craft scene here. I think Vietnam's is on the map.
It's exploding.
and you guys know it really well. And
When I first came here, there was 3 breweries, 3 microbrews. And now there's, I'm not even sure, maybe
15 of them.
I think when we were first here, it was platinum. We were making it, but we were just making it by the case and selling it at a
You guys
restaurant.
are leaders.
Fuzzy Logic was one of the early ones,
Yeah.
and then by the end of that year, Pastor Street came, and then it just went crazy after that.
There'll probably be 15 now. I'm thinking. There's a couple of
Platinum
guys into
and
names.
Pastor Street were the really big ones because they were the first ones that had an invoice and set up a proper business.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
Everyone else was just homebrewing,
Homebrewing,
figuring it out.
backyard
It's
brewers.
Like, okay, those guys blazed
Backyard
it-
brewers,
They
yeah.
blazed a trail and everyone chased them.
Big fast trail.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for taking your time and taking us through the shop. And
No, thanks for coming to
telling
see me,
us
guys.
your-
Yeah, thanks so much, Tom.
your,
Pleasure meeting you.
Very nice to meet you.
Yeah, telling us
Good
your
to see you.
story and how you got into meat.
So for the recording, we talked to Tom Charles a couple of weeks ago, and there was a school letting out during the recording, so I clipped some of the audio, and I wanted to ask him some of the questions again, just so we made sure we got that on on the record. So the first thing I want to ask you about today is Meatworks. So where does the name originate from?
Historically speaking, Meatworks, back in perhaps almost a century ago in Australia, abattoirs or butchery. Sorry, abattoirs or slaughterhouses where the cattle or lambs used to be slaughtered.
Mm-hmm.
Was called Meatworks as a nickname.
Oh, okay.
So they were called abattoirs, but people would say, "Hey, I'm going to the Meatworks today."
Classic. It's the same.
Yeah, and then I was sort of looked it up on sort of historically and found the name. So that's where it came from.
And one more time, how long have you had this particular store? The
This
brand?
store opened in April of 2015.
Wow. Okay.
So we're almost 4.5 months,
Going into
fourth years,
almost 5, yeah.
almost 5 years.
That's great. And in this time, have you seen your business growing, your staff growing?
Sure, yeah, we now have 3 retail stores, 2 in District 2. So one is here, one is on first level of Unfree Supermarket.
That's right.
One is in District 7, and we also have a wholesaling and sort of retailing business in Fukuok. So we've seen some really good growth in 4.5 years.
Oh, and how many Vietnamese staff do you employ?
In total, we have about 38, and that's everyone from back office to sales to processing to delivery guys.
Oh, that's a big staff.
Yeah, it's quite big. Yeah.
I noticed coming in here just now that there was 2 grab bikes outside. Do people on grab bikes come in and pick up?
Yes,
orders
yes,
there?
they do.
Yeah.
They do.
It's a popular.
way, and we also have a group called Chop. I think it's another one of those food
I've seen
delivery
those bikes,
type
yes,
people.
you can use. I've seen the app also. You can select items on a menu on the app.
Yes,
And
correct.
the motorbike driver will
Come
to
pick
you.
them up.
Yeah.
Correct. It's another pickup delivery service that approached us
Super
many years ago.
convenient.
Yeah, no, it works
And
quite well.
it's often, I think, for uncooked items. It's for
Correct, and we made sure that they have proper chill bags, and that's why we
that's
decided
good.
to go with Chop. A number of people approached us, but they don't have the correct units on the back of the motorbikes that keep the meat, at a good temperature.
Oh, that's interesting. I'd like to ask a little more about that.
Yeah.
So, just for the listener, just like there's Uber back in the States and other countries, frankly, there's Grab Bike and Grab Car in Vietnam, which is the same type of service. They actually bought Uber out, but there's also Chopped and I guess other services for
Correct.
food and
Correct.
various commodities. So, did they have like a criteria when they approached you? Did they come and like get your menu? or
No,
stuff like that?
Chop was an earlier one, and sort of started when we did 4.5 years ago. So we were okay to work with them, but we made sure that they had the chiller bags. For anyone else who sends in a grab bike to pick up or asks for a grab to pick up, we say, okay, but please understand it won't be in a chilled bag, and once the grab person picks it up, it's your responsibility.
Sure.
If it takes 40 minutes or an hour to get to your place and that's very hot, we can't take responsibility for that.
If you're cooking it that day, maybe.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's
but still,
right.
Yeah,
no,
I could
it's
see that being
something
a
we're very
medium
conscious of.
concern, especially with anything related to meat.
Sure.
So the name itself, I thought was kind of funny because it's like a double entendre because it's like
Sure.
Meatworks and Meatworks.
Yeah, that's right.
I did. Was that intentional or you just?
No. As I said,
Okay.
it's what they used to call abattoirs in Australia, and slaughterhouses, meatworks. So
Yep.
they don't call that anymore. If you go back to Australia, the abattoirs won't be called meatworks. But let's say in the early 1900s, the people who worked in those places would say, "Hey, Dad, I'm off to the meatworks. I'll be back tonight." And they weren't butcheries; they're actually slaughterhouses where they slaughtered the animals.
I think I've actually seen quite a number of pictures of them. I saw some documentaries about.
Yeah, it's old
Netflix
stuff.
earlier
Yeah,
this year. And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
It's with the meat hooks and the old
Correct.
slaughterhouses. So you have 3 different locations. What's coming up next for you?
At the moment, we're gonna sort of just pause where we are. We just want to consolidate a bit the next year or so. But who knows? I mean, if a good location comes up at the right cost, and we see the demographic is right, we'll take a look at it. Vietnam's a pretty fast-growing place, so you kind of sometimes just jump onto things that pop up, and that makes sense.
Sure. On an average day, what is what are you selling out the door? Do people come in looking more for beef, pork, chicken?
It's majority of it's beef, pork, and chicken. Lamb is I'm not sure if you know, but lamb for local Vietnamese they find a little bit strong and pungent. So we don't sell a lot of lamb, but we do sell quite a lot of lamb to obviously to the Australians and the expats.
Oh, great.
But yeah, it's mainly beef, pork, and chicken.
And so, one of the last things I'd like to ask you about is you have a successful business here. It feels, by all accounts, from what I've heard from other people, that you've run a really good business. People love your quality. When you're looking at other businesses in the city, who is impressing you? Who do you look at their business and you say that's really well done?
Funny you mention that. In terms of butcheries or any type of business?
Could be either.
Okay. Butcheries, I don't see a lot of other people that are doing great jobs. I mean, there's a few other competitors out there, but we see ourselves pretty much at the top of that category set.
Sure.
I like what the guys are doing at Beercraft. I mean, they're good friends of mine, Tim and Mark. They are really leading, or have been leading, that whole good food or good crafty Western food and the beer, craft beer category. So we look at those guys in terms of sort of standout retail. And that's about it, really. I mean, I don't really look at the ANAMs, and they're a different sort of retail set than us. They're more convenience, modern convenience. We're kind of just meat, so that's all we kind of look at.
And final round. When you've got a day off, you got a lazy day. What do you like to kick back and do?
We don't get many days off, but when I do, I just hang out with my kid, who's 7. We just go to the park or go for a swim.
Is he an AFL fan as well?
No, he's not. Unfortunately, he loves soccer, but that's cool. Any sort of football's good.
Gotcha. Well, Tom Charles, thank you so much.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for coming
nice
in.
And easy, yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for